My name is Mary. I've been in the SCA since 1993. Most of that time, I've worked with newcomers. I've had good experiences, I've had bad experiences. But one of the things that I have heard for years is that people are afraid to approach somebody who they think is at a high level. So peers, royalty, Pelicans, Laurels, Knights, they think that as a newcomer, they should not approach these folks. What I want to do today is I've got a group of folks, some of them are relative newcomers, some of them have been around a long time. I have a couple royal peers, I've got Pelicans, Knights, and I want my guests to ask questions as they need to. But before we do that, I would like to have my panel introduce themselves by their first name and what kingdom they're from. I'm from the Kingdom of Atlantia. Lizzie, you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Lizzie. I'm from Atlantia.
And who else do we have?
I suppose one of them is me being recruited, I guess, last night to come join you. I'm Maggie and I live in Drachenwald.
Okay. And then I see we've got Nick from Atlanta.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Vashti. I'm from Callantyr. I was also recruited last night.
And I appreciate the last minute help. I really do.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm from Atlantia.
And do we have any others?
Me, I'm Chuck. I'm also from Atlanta.
Okay.
I'm Minion. I'm from Glenavon.
Okay. So now what I would like us to do, I'm old. I remember a TV show called What's My Line? So what I would like to do is a variation of that. The people that have signed in that are not on my panel, that have not just introduced themselves, will be answering questions from the people on the chat, just to get to know each other, so you can see that just because someone has a little more elevated status than you are, they're still human beings. They're still very nice people. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else does. And they will also answer to my lord or my lady. As a newcomer, that's all you need to know to talk to someone. Most folks will say, especially if you go, my lord, I'm new. Could you tell me what your regalia means? What they'll do that. They won't get upset that you called them my lord. They won't get upset that you called them my lady. Most of them just like to talk to folks. So if there are any questions, go ahead and write them out and then we'll get them answered. Okay, well then, I guess we'll just talk amongst ourselves.
Also, again, this is the moderator just popping in. If you are on the panel, feel free to have your video running. That way you can see the other moderator or the other panelists. Sorry.
Can I ask?
Sure.
What brought everyone to the SCA? How'd you find it?
I can answer that. So, I'm autistic and I hate modern clothes. Like, they're so uncomfortable to me. I can't even like begin to describe it. Um, So I was looking for how they made clothes in the past, and I came across a YouTuber named Morgan Donner, who is a Scadian. And I was just watching her videos, and she started interviewing her Baroness and describing the SCA. And I said, wait a minute, this exists and nobody told me. So I've been hooked ever since.
Well, I guess I'll also answer my own question. A friend of mine went off to college, and she saw a billboard that said something about the SCA, and she took the number and called it. And when she came home for the summer break, um, she was like, "Oh my God, this was so awesome. 4 Vikings showed up at my house and they picked me up and they put me in clothes and they brought me to an event and we did all this stuff. You totally need to check it out." So when I went off to school, I looked for my local group. It was slightly difficult to find at the time. But once I found them, it was fun. The people were great and I just stayed.
Mine
I
was,
guess I can.
go ahead.
Being a second gen, mine was a demo in a local Barnes and Nobles where they were handing out flowers to local people and fighting for the honor in the lobby of Barnes and Nobles. It was rather entertaining, but I got dragged along, kicking and screaming by my mother for many years, but fell in love with the society and what it means. And I've been playing on and off again now for almost 20 years, 25 years. God, we stopped counting at that point.
Yep. And I will be honest, I'm his mother. And at the same Barnes and Noble, as he said, the local group there had a display of fiber arts and all kinds of things. And they did a couple dances that were okay. And then they decided they were going to start fighting in carpet armor and Freon helms. And this young man, who couldn't have been more than 16, comes to me, gets down on one knee, hands me a plastic rose and says, "My lady, can I fight for your honor?" I was lost. I was in tears, and I haven't looked back since. And that was in 1993. So
Yep. I found the SCA during college and had no time and no money. And I had friends that did probably half a dozen different types of LARP, and SCA was one of them. And after school, I moved for a job and I didn't know anyone and had nothing to do. And I had money and time and went, I'm a big history nerd. I don't like some of the fantasy LARPs, but that one sounded really interesting. So I looked for the local group and suddenly had a ton of friends and all kinds of things to do and no more money.
Way back in 2001, I was dating a girl from a couple cities away, and they invited me to this event called Gulf Wars, week-long camping event. And it's like, okay, I mean, sounds good. So I get there, they dump me off, and I didn't see him for the rest of the war. Got adopted by a Shadow Legion, and I've been playing since then.
I attended a fighter practice as a date with who I'm married to now. Then I went to a newcomer event, and it was the opportunity I got to meet a baron, a baroness, a count, a countess, lots more dancing, fighting, crafts. And my third event was a war, and I've been hooked ever since. My interest prior to that was limited to Renaissance festivals. I attended those annually and several times a year, most of my teens and 20s, but I did not know anything about the SCA at all until 2016.
Anybody else have any comments?
I started in 1986 in a foam weapons group called Dagahir that my older brother did. Went to my first SCA event was Penzic 18 as a 15-year-old. And then when I went off to college, there was no foam weapons group near me. But I'm walking across the quad and I hear bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, I know what that sound is, because there were some guys at our local practice who had started to transition to SCA fighting. At the time, I looked at them like, y'all are hitting each other with a stick, not a foam sword? Y'all are idiots. 30 some odd years later.
I was in graduate school, and a local SCA group was recruiting girls because the guys didn't have enough girls for dance practice.
Is this panel only, or is this anyone answering?
Anyone can answer.
Cool. My mother-in-law, it's her fault. She said, "Oh, there's this cool medieval group in London. They're meeting in a pub. Why don't you pop along and say hello?" I used to do this in the 80s. So we went down to the pub. They were all suitably history insane as I am, which was great. And in typical SCA fashion, I left the meeting with deputy seneschal.
You went to the bathroom, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Somebody got voluntold.
Yeah.
That's pretty much, yep.
Yeah, it kind of, that the admin side seems to have stuck.
Hey, Mary.
Yeah.
Richard has an interesting question here. Says, for the panel, as an experienced member, what are the things that keep your participation levels high? Have those things changed over time?
Okay. Who wants to go first with that?
What draws me to events has definitely changed. I've been doing this for a few years, and when I started, I was college age, and I was there for the party. I was there to drink with my friends and talk history and crazy stuff. And a few years later on, I still have a couple of drinks with my friends. I still talk, but a lot of these people have become family. People who were there before me, people who have come in after me. And I choose my events based on how much my family is going to be there and my interest in what's going on at the events. And I've been known to go to events that I've got no interest in because family, it was my one chance I was going to get to see them. So, yeah.
As an unruly teenager through most of my early SCA career, my perspective also has changed. It gave me a really productive outlet where, as a history nerd, I could be nerdy and talk history and experience the things that I'd read in books in real time. But similar to Maggie, it became more about family for me. Growing up in the society, as I did from like age 11, I built familial ties with people that you spend time with, you do things with. And although I don't play as frequently now as I used to due to work related issues, it's the familial ties, the family, the friends that I've built up over the last 25, 30 years that brings me back to the SCA every time.
For
Well,
me, Go ahead.
Sorry. I started out as a fighter, and after about 5 years, my body said, "You're not doing that anymore." So I transitioned into arts and science and some service stuff. So which events I choose to go to has changed a lot. But very much it's like everybody said, it's the people. This is where I get to go to see my friends. It's a lot of people in the SCA are on the autism spectrum or some version of neurodivergent or spicy, and the SCA is a place where that's okay and we don't have to mask, and it's very nice to go and just be myself, and that's not weird. um so it's very much connecting with people and having a chance to socialize in a way where I'm not on edge. um so yeah, the people is definitely what keeps me going to events.
Yeah, that's kind of the same for me. Where I'm at, I have to drive at least an hour and a half in literally any direction to get to not an event, but a group. And I've had horrible time trying to get one created here, but I would go to Gulf Wars every year, and that's where I got my name from, which I'm working on getting past Minion. um, and I would run around as this one person's minion. I had the big blue minion bag. I think Mad's familiar with it. So do you have? Yes, I do. And I could. It's like the 1 week out of the year where I could be me and not have to worry about masking. And that's where I found the term masking. But I've been known to spend the entire week in the encampment, ignoring classes, fights, everything else, just because that's where I found my fun, my acceptance.
Yeah, the SCA has just kind of become home, like people are saying with like the people and stuff, but also like I can let my hyper focuses and my special interests out, and people don't get weird about it. They look at you and say, "Ooh, that's interesting. Can I hear more about that?" Like, how many places do you go where you can rant about the pay scales of farmers from Elizabethan abbeys, and like people are going like, "Well, that's fascinating," like it's just so fun to find family, but also just find an outlet to be you.
Yeah, there's no issues of, oh God, they're on this again.
I will say developing that feeling of family and belonging takes time. So if you are attending events and you feel out of place yet, that's totally normal. If you're new, it takes time to build those connections and really settle in and kind of let your guard down. So it's if you're showing up and going, I don't know what to do, and it's a lot of new language and I don't know people, I get that you're not going to have that feeling just yet.
And it's not just new people. I changed kingdoms. And even though the SCA was the SCA in many ways, when you change kingdoms, as some of you may have or might, settling into a new group where you know nobody is hard. But if you stick with it, you find the people. I hide in the kitchen. They always need someone to wash dishes. And you meet people, and it's a much smaller group of people that you meet. While the rest of the event is raging on out there, the kitchen will always have that small group of people that you can get to know, because they always need dish help.
Yeah, it's we've got somebody on the phone, looks like they want a question.
I was just ready to comment whenever when it was my turn, I was going to share my answer.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mor. What keeps me going to the SCA is I was initially a spectator of fighting, but that's not what got me only interested. Most of my events in the beginning were watching a lot of fighting, but I wanted to meet people, and in my mundane life, I am it's very people focused. And so I was able to do things that I enjoyed, which is be a tour guide and meet new people and share what I'd learned at every event. Within 6 months to a year, I'd already attended SBA 101 a few times, and it seemed like teaching that and sharing and helping newcomers feel comfortable like myself was natural, because that's what I do. But I also am probably spicy in my mundane life. And so some of us can come in and wearing the mask is, you're not required to do it. I like that language. You can be yourself, but making up that name and wearing the clothes and coming to that event and making that event more focused on that theme is kind of what I enjoy. Supporting all the different stations at the smaller events is what I enjoyed the most. Learning about Golden Key and then knowing to direct people there, but also kind of checking out the Golden Key at different baronies is always fun, because you kind of get to know that that's another job or duty that someone is doing, and that's how you get to know all of the different people and their talents. But for me, it's the acting part, the performing arts, and however well you do that persona that you're developing is what keeps me coming back.
So as a teenage punk, I came for the fighting and I ended up staying for the friends. After 30 some odd years, what drives my activity level is a kind of a combination of what I want to go to versus what people need me to go to. A lot of times, if I will take on a particular job in the kingdom, that drives what my activity is going to be like, etc. There are now events I show up to and don't fight at all, and don't really go, oops, I missed out. It's just I'm focused on something different.
That is one thing too, just like there's something for literally anyone. Like you could find your niche here, or you can be, the person that bops from thing to thing. Like it's really a choose your own adventure game, and I really love that. And it's funny, like my brothers when we were kids, like we would hit each other with sticks, like fighting. Like they made, basically, it wasn't made of rattan, but they made very similar kinds of things. And I'm still trying to get them to show up to an event, but I swear it will happen one day.
You mentioned finding your niche or kind of bopping from thing to thing. Your niche changing is a big obstacle for a lot of people, especially fighting. Like when people aren't able to fight anymore, that's a big part of your identity. And suddenly you can't do the thing anymore. And I've done that a couple of times. I'd say that's probably one of the most difficult transitions is, hey, I have this niche, I've become known for this thing. So I fought for several years, and then I did weaving, and I did that for almost 10 years, and now I have some physical issues and I can't do that anymore. And it's like, okay, what now? And how do I connect at an event, and which events do I go to? So that's also changed kind of which events I go to and what I do there. That's another kind of reason why connecting with the people is such a big deal, and why so many of us are answering that, hey, we're coming for the people. The things you learn to do and can contribute and the things you get recognized for are all awesome. And as when I was newer, that was really kind of the draw. It was, hey, I'm learning this cool stuff. People are asking me to make them stuff. That feels awesome. Seeing my work kind of out there in the wild on people's garb is amazing. You know, getting awards and recognitions is cool. You know, so you go to events and you want to do all the things, and that's awesome. And then it's suddenly, hey, I can't do that anymore. And it's that connection to the people that kept me coming back there. And now I'm learning new stuff. I found my next new niche, and it takes time to make those transitions. But definitely it's those connections to the people that kind of get you through kind of those rough patches, because things do change over time.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that about changing over time. So my previous ex, she did not like me going to the SCA, and I haven't been in about 10 years. And then just a few years ago, I made some friends, introduced them to the SCA, and they turned out to be not so savory. So now I'm self-exiled. I feel like if I go to any local event, I'm going to be judged. And you know, how would y'all deal with that?
Mm.
Now, I have been told that, it's more a me issue than a them issue, because, nobody's going to associate them with me because um just, out of sight, out of mind, I guess. Even though, but yeah, a lot of anxiety.
I there was a recent event, I guess about a year ago, over here, where at a very local event, a guy said to his work buddy, "Hey, how about you come with me to this SCA thing?" And he brought him, and his friend acted like a jackass, a complete jackass at the event. He was dealt with at the event by event staff and other people that were there. And afterwards, my friend who brought him was, he was very like, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize, we were work buddies. I didn't realize he was going to be a jackass." And people pretty much let that go. I mean, they realized when you meet someone at work or you meet someone in certain circumstances, you might not know them super well, but you're excited about your hobby and you bring them with you. And there's a lot of forgiveness, I think, as long as you yourself aren't being the jackass or supporting the jackass or dismissing their behavior. Then I think people will judge people on the individual basis of, your friend was a jackass, we understand you're not. And out of sight, out of mind means that they will let that go. They won't hold it on you. Or at least I would hope people wouldn't hold it on you for time to come.
I think growing up, in a very large family that moved a lot. I was always the new kid. And some of my brothers had issues that weren't the best. So I always felt responsible because I was the oldest. That may be what this gentleman is feeling now. You know, I did this, so I'm responsible too.
Yeah.
But you're not. You just be you. You show folks that you're a decent human being, and they'll come back around. The SCA is one of the most forgiving groups of people I have ever been in. And it means a whole lot to have my family in the SCA because I'm not very close to my biological family.
I will say the SCA is full of people, and people are messy and they make mistakes. And trust me, if it's been more than 6 months, somebody else has made a big mistake too. People's memories are short, they've moved on. I was gonna say, don't hold on to this and keep torturing yourself with it. Yeah, show up, keep showing up and be you. I know the first few times you do, it's gonna be uncomfortable because that's in the forefront of your mind. And I'd be willing to bet maybe one other person at the event has that in mind too. Especially if you stopped showing up to stuff shortly after this. That's the last thing they remember with you. Keep showing up, build new memories. But for everybody else at that event, other than maybe one person, they've moved on to other stuff. You know, sometimes the SCA is full of gossip. Somebody else has made a big mistake too. That people have moved on. Start building new memories and don't torture yourself over this. You know, it was a mistake. It's not on you.
I guess I'll just do what I done when I started and go live in the kitchen.
That's one thing I tell everyone in a newcomers class. If you feel absolutely alone at an event and you cannot find anything that interests you, that you feel like you're going to fit in with, go to the kitchen. The kitchen always needs help. They will welcome the help. And they usually have all kinds of funny tales and great personalities. And I know I started out in the mid-realm. I moved down to Atlantia, and my son and I went to our first event here, and it was like we were ghosts. People walked by, didn't see us, didn't pay any attention to us. And after about 2 hours of that, I looked at him and he looked at me, and we both go, kitchen. And we met lifelong friends in that kitchen that day. And it's been years and years, and they're still friends. I moved back to the mid-realm, and I was there for 10 years and then came back here. And we still kept in touch the entire time I was gone. We're still friends. So yeah, just keep doing what you were doing. Kitchen's where you found your happy spot before. Go to the kitchen.
Go ahead.
Say, there are people in the kingdom I live in who love me to death. There are people in the kingdom I live in who absolutely hate me with a white hot passion. I've probably earned 95% of all of it. At the end of the day, I can't sit there and be concerned about did I hurt this person's feelings? I mean, you try and be compassionate, but people are going to believe what they're going to believe. They're going to think what they're going to think. If they're willing to talk to you about it, then you have a chance to open a dialogue and fix it on a person by person basis. Otherwise, just try to be the best you can be and focus on the people that you're comfortable with, that you know, that like my chosen family would take a bullet for me. And that's why when somebody else is talking and whispering and saying this, and they're like, well, doesn't that upset you? I'm like, no, it doesn't really affect me because it doesn't.
So what I was going to say is I've noticed that we've gotten one or two guests joined here recently, and I was just going to poke at them and see if they had any questions in general for the SCA or our area, or I'm sorry, our panel.
Not at this time.
I'm enjoying the conversation. Mostly just here to hang out and see what people are interested in and talking about. I'm a regional chatelaine promoted up from a local chatelaine, so I want to see what things are like in other areas.
Interkingdom anthropology could totally be a whole track for a whole day all on its own.
I think we have a new branch of the SCA that Maggie's just been volunteered for.
Oh boy. I was just looking at the chat and I'm seeing, what's your favorite thing towards awards changed from before you received your award? Attitude, sorry. Has your attitude and perception towards awards changed from before you received your award? I can talk about my experience when I got my AOA. I had been in the SCA for 3 years. My introduction to the SCA was a crash course in who's who of my local region. And it was, I didn't really feel different, other than maybe I felt really cool when they called me into court. A little embarrassed because of what I was wearing. It was a hot day on top of a mountain. I had stripped off half my garb, so I'm there in a simple gown, kneeling before the king and queen, and when they looked down at me, they could see straight down my dress and see the floor. So I was, but I was honored. And I think afterwards, it maybe took a little while, but at that point, after getting my AOA, I felt more responsible for the SCA. Now that I was a lady, I knew I was going to be someone who was, their first event was going to look at and go, "Ooh, she's a lady," because that's what I had done. So I guess after getting my AOA, I did take on that little bit of responsibility.
Well, especially with the AOA, like I felt like, oh, like I'm doing it right, I guess is the way, like it's kind of hard to say 'cause it's entry level, like I hadn't even been there too terribly long, and I was like, oh, well, like I guess I'm doing this SCA thing in a way that is obviously I was having a good time. And that's all I really was caring about was like, let's support the organization, let's have fun, let's be me. And like, oh, I guess I fit in here. People are looking at me and saying like, oh, like you you qualify for I'm having a hard time putting into words, but like yeah, like it's like okay, like I'm doing something right. That means that I'm going to continue to be a part of this in a way like I'm having trouble
For
with
those of us that are a bit older in age, it's the Sally Field acceptance speech. They like me. They really like me. Oh, it's just that feeling that.
Yeah. So my first award was it was just a simple low level Kingdom Service Award. But it's kind of how it happened that made it special for me. So it was my 25th birthday for that event. My friends, I didn't know anything. They're like, hey, you want to go to this event? They picked me up. They took me. I couldn't afford feast. They made sure I had feast. And then they made sure that I was at court, which I normally avoid. And they called my name, and two of them grabbed me by the shoulders and marched me up there. And I got my first award on my birthday from the then prince and princess that were basically the two people in the SCA that I had the most respect for. And then I think the next year I made one of them cry and just about knocked the other one off their chair when I wrote a song about them. Mad knows who they are. It's Moose and Bree, and if anybody's heard the old Moose song, I kind of refilked it for them.
To be honest, I was absolutely terrified when I got my AOA. Earlier in the day, somebody had thrown one of my boots at the Wake Up Herald. And so when I got dragged up into court, I was just a little bit scared, or a lot worried about the fact. And then one of the knights from, it was a regional fighter practice, one of the knights from behind the throne came around to escort me up into their majesty's presence. It was a bit terrifying. Afterwards, I think I was just kind of stunned and in shock. I was so stunned and in shock, I had to burn myself on the hot part of the kitchen equipment while I was trying to clean up feast. So that was kind of my AOA experience. Been in the kitchens ever since, so it hadn't changed me much, I guess.
Our barony has changed its idea of how they're going forward with their entry-level award. Our entry-level award is the Yeoman Award. That's the very first thing that you identify somebody with. The first time you notice them doing anything participatory, you give them the Yeoman Award. And it's just this little knot that gets on a piece of cord that's woven together, and you wear it around your wrist for a while. And then no one ever sees them again. So we rethought how we're doing it, and we're making belt favors that have an image of the yeoman's knot on it. They'll get a real knot, but this one's going to have an image on it. And they then have a belt favor, because belt favors are cool. I mean, the best people wear belt favors. And then every award that they get after that, they can put some sort of representation on that belt favor that shows that they have this award, and this award, and this award. And it gives them a way for you to start identifying what their interests are and what they've done, so that they're not so invisible. And we're getting kind of excited about doing this.
No, I have my AOA experience was very similar to what people have talked about here. I have a very different perspective on awards, I think, and that comes from who I apprenticed to. So I was a student for arts and sciences, and my laurel very much, we did not focus on awards and getting awards. I got them. They're amazing. I'm very proud of them. They make people feel amazing. They can also make people feel kind of rotten if you don't get recognized and you feel like you've been doing a lot of work. So we very much focused on, what do you enjoy doing? What do you think is useful work? What are your goals? And working towards those things. And if the recognition from people comes, then it comes, because once you get past AOA, you get into voting orders, and they're full of people, and people are messy. So the whole, people are going to get awards and you're going to show off and and see all of those medallions and what people have was not a thing for me as much, which is really interesting. As I've played longer and talked to other folks and come to realize that's a really big deal for people, where in the household I was in, that wasn't our focus at all. And it was like, oh, okay, I'm still weird in the SCA. But also I think that helped a lot, and it's a perspective that I wish more people had. Because it really focuses on taking joy in the work you're doing and not, it helped keep me from getting bitter when it was like, oh, well, that person and I started about the same time and they've got more awards than I do. Or hey, we're doing similar types of work in arts and sciences and they got an award and I didn't. And it was a really different perspective on awards. I definitely put a lot of focus on myself now for making note of people at events and putting in award recs because of that. And because of those conversations I've had with people who have gotten kind of bitter about not being recognized when they thought they should. Some of them were valid, some of them I tried to encourage to actually do more of the work. But it's a very different perspective on awards, and I really think they can end up being kind of a double-edged sword in terms of how much you focus on them. So play and do what you have fun doing.
Yeah, that's one of the issues in my kingdom is a lot of the perception is it's not what you do, it's who you know. And of course, the household that I play with most of the time has well, we're the party household, and it's basically been told that if you want to advance in the SCA, don't associate with us. And we're working on cleaning up our image, and we've got laurels and pelicans and apprentices, but still, that remains. And the only way that some of us see the ability to get an award while staying loyal to the household is, making friends with the people that are in the entourage, and, having them push for us to get an award.
Mary, this is the room host. We are about 1 minute out to end of class. So if you have any final words to wrap up, and then I will stop the recording.
Okay, I just want everybody, excuse me, again, thank you for coming, but I want everybody to introduce themselves with their titles, please, before we go.
Since I've got to do a class here in about 10 minutes, my name is Dufgal Vinaldeson, also known as Minion. I am nothing. I'm an apprentice at large to my late Laurel.
That's not nothing.
That's not nothing.
You're something, my friend.
Well,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not a peer. I don't even have an AOA. So it's just, I've just got my belt and my service award.
Or good gentle. You're welcome. Always.
I'll go next.
Okay.
It was great hearing so many comments from Minion, as well as I noticed that when I began playing, I did not have any focus on awards at all. So I'm Countess Jasmine of Atlantia. I've played since 2016. I didn't get my AOA until 2019, and I didn't feel like I was late in getting it until I realized that, oh, I need to get this award eventually to really maybe consider myself a Scadian. but I didn't have pressure to do anything other than what I wanted to do. And what I feel like my experience for those first 3 years was being a newcomer and through the eyes, seeing what that event was like as a new person. And yes, my awards, my view of awards has changed a great deal. And I know the importance of writing other people in now.
At this point in time, folks, I have to stop the recording. You all may continue to talk, but the next class will start in about 9 minutes.